Recording in. And then just so you know, I didn't want you to be like, what's going on?
My keyboard's not. It's not.
All right, it is 5:30. So at this time, we will begin our pre-meeting study session for the Adrian City Commission for September 7th, 2021. Roll call, please.
Mayor Heath,
Present?
Commissioner Hou,
Present.
Commissioner Roberts,
Present.
Commissioner Watson,
Present.
Commissioner Strayer,
Present.
Commissioner Castleberry, Commissioner Gauss,
Present.
all commission members present.
And at this time, I will turn it over to City Administrator Greg Elliott.
Thank you, Mayor. So the first item on the pre-meeting agenda is a presentation by a representative of the Elizabeth Wilson Foundation.
Elizabeth Wilson Foundation and
we have-
Adrian City Band.
Teresa Powers here from that group, and the director of our city band, Mr. Gorski, I believe, is here as well. And they're going to talk about an interest they have in finding a better permanent home for the city band. With that, Ms. Power, Mr. Gorski, I'll turn it over to you.
Sure. Let Ryan.
Well, I'll just give you a little update about our past 2 seasons, I guess. With COVID, during 2020, we moved online. We had a lot of success doing virtual groups. We had a lot of local participation, but because we were virtual, we were able to open it up to nearly anyone, anywhere, and ended up with over 148 musicians participating on and off, not everyone in the same group. 15 different states, 58 cities, 4 different countries. We had people from Canada, Germany, weekly, every week. It was really nice to have them be a part of our little community here. And we finally made it back to playing in person this year, and we're really happy and thankful that we could do that. We just finished our 184th season, which makes the Adrian City Band the second oldest continuously active community band in the entire country. And we've had right around 70 individuals play with us this summer, usually averaging about 60 per concert. That's up from before COVID, where we had around 35 at each musicians participating in each concert. Crowds were incredible. I think we had close to 200 people at each concert. We did 10 concerts here in the farmers market, which is really, it's a pretty ideal location as far as bugs and as far as parking goes and access for some of our older and less mobile audience members. The community's just supported us really well this year. One individual in the community donated money for us all to get polo shirts, which I think the last time that we ordered new polos was about 14 years ago. The Adrian Noon Rotary Club sponsored the second half of our concerts and provided free water and snacks to the people who came. And they also collected donations, which they matched, and helped us fundraise about $5,500 or more, all said and done, which we're hoping to put towards some new percussion equipment, some more stands, so we can have a few more people participate. We have about 50 music stands that the city owns. So it's nice to be able to invest in ourselves and continue that growth. But Wilson Foundation presented us with an unsolicited grant of $2,000 as well. So we're really excited to put all of that financial support to good use. Music is such a communal experience, and it was so evident after this year playing virtually that both the audience and the musicians needed to have those shared experiences again. We're really thankful that we were able to do that before things kind of revving back up again, unfortunately, with COVID. Would like to say thank you to the city and the commission and to the Wilson Foundation for all of their generous support. Matt, the Parks Department is excellent.
I've been executive director for 20 years now, and we've basically focused on schools, but now we're getting caught up, believe it or not. And everybody's got the instruments and things they need, and thanks to the stock market, our foundation is doing really well. So we're looking right now for bigger projects. And we had a brainstorming session a few weeks ago, and supporting City Band was one of them because we've all are so familiar with it. I love going there and watching the 13-year-olds play with the 65-year-olds. And they're all making beautiful music together. And I don't think there's another community around that does that. And I think it's a wonderful asset for our community. And I think it's something we gotta support and keep going. And that's why I'm here today. One of the things that came to my attention was that you're planning on ramping up your recreation parks department this next year. And we would really love to be a part of that because we'd like to see a place where there's a stage and parking that go together, because the stage down in the park is beautiful, but there's no parking, and it's hard for seniors to get down the hill and back up the hill. And that's the majority of the people who enjoy these concerts. And we would just love to work with the city and see if there's something we can do as far as matching donations to help pursue that, or ideas, or whatever it takes. But we just are here today asking to be a part of it. So, and I also want to thank you for helping with City Band. I'm excited. I think we could build that up, and you know, how many other communities say they have a band that's been around 184 years? I think we could build that up, publicize it. And when you go to those concerts and just sit there and see these people truly enjoying the music, enjoying themselves, it's just really a great thing to see. So if anyone has any questions, I'd be glad to answer them. Otherwise, I just want to thank you for letting us come speak today and let me support Brian, because he did a really great job last year keeping us on going through, even though it was virtual. So
One question I would have is, were you happy with being in a location that was more like downtown? I mean, I know you said the parking was better, things like that. Are you looking still for a park setting? What exactly are you looking for on a City Band side for that? I know that I had received feedback from some people downtown that said I didn't even know that existed, and I'm so glad I found it because I heard them, because you were audible this year to anybody downtown, and they knew what was going on. And I would even drive by and go, oh, that's right, that's happening tonight, because I would see that. And so it was more visible, it was more audible for, and I feel like maybe that's what helped with attendance, and I didn't know what you were exactly looking for though.
I think,
I think attendance helped because people can park. I really think that's part of it, but
that's a big part of it. And
we're
yes,
also
it
got
helps
ideas.
being downtown as well, especially with some of the new regulations with food trucks and the DARA thing. I think can really open some doors to making big kind of community events happen down in that area. I think it's an ideal spot parking wise, but as a musician, it's really awful to play under the awning there. Just it's hard for us to hear each other well, and really like a kind of shell situation would be better, but I do think that the street traffic or, foot traffic helps a lot, bringing people who wouldn't normally attend a community.
We'd be willing to help either way, wherever we figure out would be a good place for sound, for the van, and for parking and everybody.
The sound at Trussell Park was good, but parking was the issue.
And then the area that's there in front of the stage is just, it's just grass, but it's a little uneven and, it's just hasn't been maybe maintained as well in years past. And so it's just tough, for older or less mobile people to walk on.
By the time the musicians park in the parking lot and on the street on the other side, there's no parking lot for, the audience.
Right.
And it's quite a hike if you're carrying a chair. You're 70 years old and hiking it to it, but.
Yeah, there's a baseball field and another large space before you get to that parking lot from the stage.
Have you thought about a shuttle between the courthouse parking and Trussell Park? There's a lot of parking at the courthouse.
It's a great idea.
To look into.
Yeah.
You still have to get from the parking lot to the show.
Right.
Yeah.
That's quite a hike. And you gotta carry a chair, so getting on a bus with a chair might be an issue, but yeah, I'm open to looking at ideas.
We looked at starting our season in Trussell Park just because the way people sit at the farmer's market, there's a little more space for people to spread out. We weren't sure how our audience would feel about COVID and everything. So we looked at that, but some issues with the roof of the pavilion down there and just the maintenance of the ramps and things. I think we decided it would be better to be in the farmer's market this year. Everyone agreed. There was quite a few upset folks when I mentioned that we were going to move to Trussell Park. A lot of our audience members kind of expressed themselves to us. I think if there was a way to get people down there and make it simple for them to get down in front of the stage, yeah, if it's a shuttle, if it's a parking lot.
Okay, thank you for that.
Thank you. Thank you.
So our next,
Any questions, we'd be glad to come back anytime.
appreciate that.
Thank you.
So our next presentation is by or on behalf of the new owner of Adrian Mall. Who won the call is going to speak for the group this evening?
Be me, Raphael DeAngelis.
Okay, and is someone going to need to screen share, Raphael?
Correct.
Would that be you?
No, Tony Spinozzi.
Okay, all right, so we'll set that up so he can screen share. I had occasion, as I've told the commission, I think in one of my reports, to meet with the new owner, a fellow named Isaac Catan, a few weeks back now, and he brought in Raphael and his group by way of Zoom, talk about an idea they had for the redevelopment of the mall. I invited them here tonight to speak to you, and so that's the presentation they're going to show you now. And with that, I'll turn it over to Raphael. Maybe you can introduce your group and then go on into your presentation.
Yes, here you have it with my team, Tony, which is head of marketing for us, David, political affairs. I don't know how many of my team, Michael, finance. I don't know if Karine is on the line. There's a lot of people. But, I'm Raphael DeAngelis. I actually one of the people that wrote this project that you're going to look at it. This project was developed 3 years ago. It was never supposed to be the way it became. Originally, we thought in a much simpler footprint in how can we create an environment that sells marijuana and CBD where it cannot be associated just as a recreational and be treated more like an education center, a medical center, because there is so much evidence of the medical benefit for this plant. And we thought maybe creating a more corporate structure. At the time I was working for a very wealthy individual in Florida, and he wanted to go into the marijuana business. And it was like, maybe if we do this in a very professional corporate setting, this would become a center of distribution. Because one thing that I recommended to them is that the secret of the marijuana is not on the growing, is on a distribution, because it's called weed for a reason. Anybody can grow this legally or illegally. So then we came up with the concept of WeedWork X project. And what you're gonna see now, it's a prototype. This project is being built, is gonna be built here in New York. Originally, it's always gonna be New York, it's gonna be the headquarters for it. Originally, this is gonna be New Jersey. The EDC, the city of New York, convinced us to move the project to the Bronx. Here in New York is a much larger project, is a $300 million project to $400 million. But the idea is that this would become a franchise, and we would pick one state. Each state would get one of these and make it the brand and the distribution center for the state itself on this concept. Isaac is one of our partners, recommended to the city of Adrian as something with incredible potential for this. We looked into it. I'll be honest, there are challenges that we see in this location, but we also have hope based on the strategy that we create, that this will be a good fit for this. And the same model that you see here is reproduced in the next 10 states. The next one after Michigan, it's Colorado. Okay, so what we did first, my team and I, we're analyzing all the businesses that you have in the vicinity of the mall. We also check access to the metropolitan area. And we know why malls, most of us here, including me, we are venture capitalists that do real estate. So what we do here is we looked at a real estate and we added, how can we create an experience that we can bring consumers from East Lansing, from Ann Arbor, from Detroit, from Toledo. I grew up there. That's why I know all those cities. I went to school there. Otherwise, we don't. So how can I bring these people in? And what you're going to see here is the concept that we believe we can make this work. And that's what you're going to see. So the next slide. Within this complex, which is the conversion of the mall, we look for public spaces, urban gallery, okay, rooftop bar, Wechat Lab, urban retail, food court, urban retail, Wechat Lab. In New York, we have a museum of street art. It might not fit for that location. And then you have all the CBD and weed businesses. And we're going to go through very quickly in each slide of the concept. Go ahead. This just goes into our belief. We believe that when we come into a community, that we reach out to that community and we create business that actually make the whole region grow at the same time. And we take that in consideration when we write the development projects. Cultivation is a big business for us. In our business model right now, cultivation is a business for us, particularly on the medical side and as well as in recreation. We don't necessarily care to have a license. We build facilities for the people that have the license, okay? Look at us as real estate builders that only provide the services for the industry. We really license, I think we can get a partnership to hold the license here, but the method in how it's grown and how the product is packaged, the house controls, our group controls. It's because all about marketing and branding is very important for us, and image is extremely important. So, so we have a Wechat Labs. This is a system that's been very well checked here in New York City. The state asked us to develop this in a much bigger way. It's almost an NSF of marijuana, where every product sold within our premises will have to be certified by Wechat. We can take supply from other states, from other counties, if possible, in each state, but they still would have to go through the quality control that we have. And this seal of quality, it's a nonprofit organization, by the way. Would be sitting in Adrian. So all all the marijuana inventory that needs to be certified will be flowing into the city of Adrian to be certified by Wechat and send it back for distribution. And that's what this is. This is a nonprofit lab that controls the quality of everything that is sold within our premises, and hopefully we'll be doing the same for other locations, just like NSF in Ann Arbor does for water. So, dispensary. Our dispensary is not a small business. We will not open this unless we open a 5,000 dispensary for THC products and 5,000 square foot for CBD. We are the largest CBD and THC distribution center in the state of Michigan. We provide the best quality, and we provide as possible we can local, but also statewide supply of CBDs or nationwide supplies of CBD that is not prohibited under federal law. So if you want CBD, if you want THC, with X in Adrian would become the place in Michigan for you to come in. Packaging, it's mandated by the House. Every package that we have, we show the uppercase of the value of the product, not the lowercase. So for us, this is a very important tool to educate the public that you can buy prescribed marijuana that it's already packaged for your dosage, your daily dosage that is allocated by your doctor, because that's what's happening in the industry today. And we would like to create a system within those within the House that everything is packaged dose, which is actually widely done in Israel today. Go ahead. Bar and lounge and restaurant, it's big operation for us. Our mix, it's 40 to 50% food and beverage. It's not the marijuana trade that sustain our business. Marijuana trade for us and variables, it's between 15 to 20% of our business. And the rest is retail. So this is a big business for us. Food experience, drinking experience, like farm to table program. It's a big thing for the middle of the country. The way this works is every produce in the whole facility will be sourced first locally through farmers cooperative in the system. But we also have greenhouse where people can buy fresh and restaurants can serve fresh from the greenhouse. Why do we do this? Because we first studied the amount of whole foods consumer in the state of Michigan. Okay, whole foods consumer in the state of Michigan tends to be the most affluent, but the supermarket chain has quite a profitable operation in the state of Michigan, which means you have a very wealthy audience in the suburbs of Detroit and Grand Rapids and whatever the location the Whole Foods is, that has an appreciation for farm to table organic foods and organic produce. So it was a clear bet for us that if we create a product that offer also premium food quality or organic food quality or things that are grown locally by the farmers in the region that the consumer can buy, it would be a good operation for us to have. And that's what you see there. But you have greenhouse eating and a greenhouse culture farm to table, including restaurants and farmers on the area that provide the food for us. Good, next one. We also have in this, do we have the food truck slide? No. It's part of this. One of the things that we create is, listening to you guys meeting, is called the food truck food hall, okay? We actually have a whole platform in our development that every single complex would have a food truck food hall, and we rotate the food trucks. They actually go from region to region. We have food trucks today is a phenomenon all over the world. So we can bring food truck from Italy for Italian week. We can bring food truck from California for California Food Week. Everything to experience, everything to bring people on the door, because today, if you don't create an experience, nobody goes to a mall. It's gone the time that you built and they're there. You know, online is a much better experience. And we understand this because we are in the forefront of technology retail development. You know, the next slide. Interactive supermarket, you know, the produce that you buy, the consumer needs to know there was harvest yesterday. You know, the consumer needs to know when is it there. You know, this is when we provide something that nobody else in the state of Michigan is providing to the consumer today. And we know that the people with money in the suburbs, from Ann Arbor to Michigan, to East Lansing, to Bloomfield Hills, they will come. They will come because they know quality, because they spend in quality today. The next one. Spa Wellness Center is a big business for us as well. You know, this is a center that you experience everything CBD related. So you're even going to have cosmetic treatment that people can experience here. Everything you see here is a lab for products and placements of products. There is nothing like this in the country that specializes in the weed cosmetic industry. And that will become our center for Michigan. One location in Michigan is going to get this. We only build one. The next one. The beauty zone, only cosmetics based on natural ingredients. CBD obviously is a big part of this, but also we always have a percentage of our retail space, even with subtenants in it, allocated for local businesses. You know, it's usually 10%. We give it for local business incentives or statewide of Michigan incentives for the next generation of products that they can position. Next one. We are retail experience. The only retail that we have, it's actually sneakers. We don't have Gap. We don't have none of that. We have a sneaker world for the kids, you know, teenager, and also a sneaker trade. This is already a group of tenants that we have that are global in the sneaker trade that they move together. So we pretty much give the space we built to them, to the Nikes and all that stuff. And they pretty much take over the space, one per region, one per state. Sneaker trade, I don't know if you guys know the industry, is over $2 billion today, the industry of collectibles and traded with teenagers. So, and that's what you have here, that you bring the people from the city to buy those products and to trade those products that today you have nothing in the metro area. Okay. We also an event space. The idea is that this place is such an entertainment center that people will spend at least minimum 6 hours when they get here. And if we are very good at doing a good job with the environment that we provide and what the facilities that we provide, not just as a project, but the city that we choose to be, hopefully they stay overnight or they stay for a few days. And this is how big the project can be. It depends how we cater to the audience. And the very small, we need to have at least 100,000 people circulating on this a day, you know, for us to really make this a good operation coming in from all over the state during the peak times. So the next one. This is concept of buildings. If development takes off with the project in phase one, then we're just going to go ahead and expand it. So an expansion of this would be concept of one tower in the site, you know, that can actually sustain rental, hotel within the complex facility. You know, and also the idea of creating residential around the premises, you know, to create a more urban environment where families can actually, or young and single couples can actually come here. The idea of this whole project is to make Adrian and this complex a point of reference, not just for people that are connoisseurs of marijuana, of medical marijuana or food, but also for the industry itself, that it's in its infancy in the state of Michigan. It's a place that we are here. If you have a trade, you have an office of representation here. You know, we can do business transaction here for the people in the industry of the state of Michigan. It is a fast growing industry that needs real estate support. And the idea that this would be a real estate support, that's why we see potential for office. That's why we see potential for some residential here and some hotel development. I will be honest with you guys, I was aware of Adrian. Isaac pointed out the benefits that it could be to locate there. We do believe today with this vision that it's possible to make it, you know, in a variety of other variables that we all know it exists. It's possible for us to consider that this can be a route. And we want to present this to you guys so you guys can look at it and let us know if this is something that the city of Adrian would like to see it happen in that region. What comes down to do is this, it's whether the city really supports the project and whether this vision is in a line where you see prosperity in the future for your town. And that's what we would like to hear from you.
Thank you, Raphael. The reactions from the commission, or are there questions that you have, Raphael, off the?
If you guys have any question, we are here to answer, you know, as much as we can.
It is up running in the Bronx.
I don't believe your project is up and running in the Bronx, is that?
No. This is new construction. In the case for Adrian, you guys gonna fall into retrofit, which nationwide we choose to actually go into distressed properties and do conversion rather than build new construction. It's just that New York is a 3-year product that is gonna be the epicenter of the launch of the concept, but we're starting in towns like yours.
What is your timeline in New York?
Well, New York, we are in acquisition negotiations right now of the land and negotiations with the EDC on tax benefits and transportation infrastructure that it's needed. And tax incentive. Tax incentive we just finished. The city already put a package for us that what we're entitled to get. And we negotiate pretty much the terms that we want on that. And then now goes into the next phase, which is financing. And here in New York City, we got the rights to, we're pretty much certain we got the rights to issue tax-free bonds because it's a distressed area. We haven't evaluated anything about Adrian or what benefits in state level or federal level we can get in that region. But we are evaluating right now just on the perspective of the location and what kind of business we can put it in to maximize the return on the area.
No other questions?
Needed to hear more.
I think, go ahead. I'm sorry.
All what I anticipated hearing tonight. So I don't have any questions.
It is a very large project, and I know
Very different from anything I've ever seen or heard of before, obviously. So, wow.
you know the question that we all must ask. I'm gonna share a story with you guys that hopefully is helpful. You know, I have written many very big projects in real estate, and the biggest one that I ever wrote, it was a marina concept in New York City. And instead of locating the marina in the New York side, we decided to locate the marina in Jersey City. And Governor Christie at the time gave a really incredible amount of tax incentive to be there. And then at the same time, they also became the troublemaker, as always political in that level becomes. But one thing that fascinated me is that when I went to the city meeting just like this in Jersey City, I told them, you know, I think I was a resident there to understand the region. And I told them, so, you know, this city deserves this. You know, why should you always be dependent on Manhattan across the river? You can become a point of reference into creating this spectacular retail platform here that you can bring thousands of people in it. One of the biggest things that I noticed is that the concept for the people in Jersey City that is locally grown, that they could expand it into a balloon, that they become a point of reference on the state and even on the region. It was very difficult in the beginning to grasp because it was so out of the reality they were expecting of themselves. What I saw here, you know, I grew up 5 years of my life in Michigan. I went to Michigan State, you know, and I know the area very well. I've been to Kalamazoo. I probably drove through Adrian many times. What I think is that Southern Michigan needs something on this level to become a point of reference in that area. You know, and in the beginning, our financial team, it was against it. They believe that the opportunity lies for the north, closer to the suburbs. But today I have to tell you, you know, I think it's worth a try to open something in this region that otherwise it would never be open. And obviously this is not an effort just from us here in New York to bring this business there, or Isaac to, you know, give it the property for the development. This is an effort for a town that we must do to say, okay, let's make Adrian now a point of reference into incredible experience that everybody wants to go to. One thing that helps us is that Michiganders don't mind driving. It's not the case for people from LA, for example. Michiganders think that it's cool to go to a place that is an hour away from them. So this is what made possible to envision this concept in your region, you know, because you're relatively close in miles to many, many millions of people that can actually transform this town by bringing a lot of money into the region. You know, we are here, we are catalysts. You know, we are just a seed. You know, if you put on the right soil, those concepts catch on fire and become a point of reference. You know, Bilbao in Spain did this with the Ferengari Museum, that $110 million made a town billions of dollars in revenue in over 10 years. So this is the concept here. So we are a seed that if you're very successful into how we do this together, that it can bring all other businesses into the region and transform that area in itself. And I want you guys to think on that aspect, because we take pride in how we design our interaction with marijuana. We respect the plant for its scientific value. And we feel that the industry needs to push to show people the quality of the experience. It's not just entertainment. There is medical evidence that this is good for you. But then we understand that it's a lifestyle of not just that, it's a lifestyle of health, with a little bit of alcohol, the wine and all the variables of it, because everybody enjoys that. But the point is, we sell actually an experience for the consumer from beginning to end in every single aspect of what we do.
I have a question.
Yeah.
This is a really large and progressive project. So there must have been one thing that really caught your eye with Adrian, because we're a relatively small community of 20,000 people. And so all of a sudden you're talking about a large progressive project in a relatively small community. And I thought, what is it?
You had an allied in one of my.
Are we going to be competing with some other cities that you're looking at? I mean, you've sort of pinpointed us, but are you looking at other cities in Michigan and sort of weighing what the situations are?
Look, we are an investment organization, right? So we have investors. What we do know is that you have a great allied in our team, that's part of our team, called Isaac, that owns the property, So he's the one that brought the deal of Adrian. We did our studies, which would never be done this way, to be honest with you, if it wasn't for Isaac. Usually what we would do an open bid on the state level for different cities to compete for it. But because it comes from Isaac and this is a partner, of ours, then obviously it was given priority. And we spearheaded this project that we weren't even looking to go retrofit right away, but retrofit is available in all states because of the mall crisis. And we're like, well, let's move retrofit. And this way we can implement it quicker in many states around the country. There is an incredible need for this. So we did an announcement for only 2 states. Illinois now is going to be announced, and we did Denver, Colorado, and Colorado got picked up by another group of investors. So we're going to be doing Denver there, same complex that you guys have. And the people in Colorado took the option of all places, Oklahoma, that is not even legal yet, but they took the option for Oklahoma. So, and then we're doing Michigan. And Michigan came because of Isaac. And he's like, please look at this. We looked at it and we think we can do something work. And you're right. It's something that you never expected to happen there. But 30 years ago, nobody accepted that 50 years ago, the Silicon Valley would become Silicon Valley. Or nobody knew that those cities that become point of references today became point of references then. So I think there is an opportunity here in our emerging industry that Adrian can be a point of reference in the region.
One of the important things in our community is the historical value and the historical properties.
Mm-hmm.
How do you think these coincide together?
Well, we are pretty much in a separate complex within. I think what you're gonna see happen if we are very successful here is the inflow of other businesses that doesn't necessarily relate to us, particularly innovation business in the food business or chefs and restaurants, because you bring all this audience, but the revitalization or the increase of the revitalization of downtown of your region, it's probably will be the natural next step once we bring thousands of people through this complex, and then they need to see something else. But that is then create a template now that City Hall and City Council can create a master plan of entertainment and development in your region as you see fit. You can make it as friendly for them to go there as you wish, and you can make it as unfriendly as you can for people not to migrate to the business elsewhere. But we bring most of the time developments of this scale. They are self-contained enterprises. Because we work with communities, it would be interesting, if it is the interest of the city of Adrian, to maximize the flow, the traffic flow into the town. But this is the city decision, it's not us as developers of that section.
I mean, a project of this magnitude focused on marijuana CBD, it doesn't fit our community. I already get heat for the size of the marijuana industry around us. I mean, I don't know how we can even entertain this discussion at this point in time. This is between me and my peers right now, Raphael, just hold tight. You know, as a voter, the one commissioner that voted down marijuana in the beginning, I'll admit it. I mean, yeah, it's come around and it's all right. I cannot take any more heat of the number of marijuana facilities that we have in our town, from dispensaries to grows to whatever it is. Do we really want that to be our identity? I don't think any of us around this table do. And to allow this presence in this investment, and Isaac, thank you for buying them all, and thank you for taking to these guys for an opportunity. I can't see how we could even consider this project on a prominent parcel like that and to be put on a map for pot. Come on. We're already on the map for pot and it's not favorable. I can't.
Can I just add something?
Not yet.
Okay.
I agree with you, Brad. I think that our citizens have told us enough is enough and have said, you know, no more. In fact, we want less. I think it's a very progressive idea. The thing that I heard that made me uncomfortable, and I realize it's not the focus of the project, when I started hearing about teenagers.
Yeah, having a sneaker stop.
Yeah, that really, really bothers me. The fact that, you know, we're going to do something here that's going to be attractive to the teenage population, because, you know, even anyway, that's all I'm going to say about that.
Brad, I agree with that. I do. This was not at all what I thought we were going to be hearing today. And like you, I get questioned all the time. How many more pot places coming in? And I talked to them about the tax base that, you know, has been reinvigorated and sold and bought and sold. And so we're gaining, you know, income for the city for it. And we've rejuvenated some properties. But I don't want Adrian to be considered Pot City, Michigan, or Weed City, Michigan,
USA.
Weed City,
Midwest.
USA. I don't. This is where, like all of you, you know, we've raised our children here, and I want them all to have some kind of investment. But I right now, no. I'm sorry, but no.
I do think there's some interest in scientific study, and I don't exactly know what this looks like, I guess. So I heard you say earlier, we need more information, but I don't like a bunch of little pot shops coming up. But I am very interested in the science of CBD oil without the THC, et cetera. Just got a phone call that I lost a buddy this past weekend that was a veteran. Could have changed his life possibly. I don't know. I'm just saying I know that that's a new venture in science, and if we can be part of a science, like science that's building, I'd be definitely interested in that. However, I don't want to be Pot City USA or Pot City Midwest or anything like that. I'm less interested in pot or selling just the marijuana than I am the other scientific studies behind that. So I guess I am interested in learning a little bit more about that, but I certainly don't want another pot shop in Adrian.
As one of the commissioners that was supportive of opting into the new medical marijuana law when it was came to us, you know, I was very, you know, a free market guy, let the market dictate how many we have, but we've just talked recently about scaling it back. We got too many. And there is a time or place where we have too many of that type of business, whether it be, you know, pharmacies, liquor stores, you know, you name it. So again, that parcel is way too busy and way too visible. The project looks neat if we were just starting, but we've sold a lot of property. We've renovated a lot of blighted buildings. We've created jobs. I would like to see that property repurposed as something different rather than marijuana CBD. That's just my position on it. So.
Well, my heart sunk, just so you know, because this is not what I wanted to hear, seeing this presentation, because, I mean, I will be very blunt and honest, if I had been on the commission when this went through, I would have voted no as well on marijuana in general here. Now, have I seen it change buildings and facilities and, you know, and improvement with light and things like that, and have I seen some benefits? Yes. I just can't get on board. I think I had the same reaction exactly about the sneakers, that I was like, wait, teenagers, what? And, you know, that also got me thinking, oh, wait, you know, we do have colleges in town, and when the parents come to look at this town for their children to go to college, are they gonna see that? And that's gonna turn them away as well. But, and, you know, and that's people that patronize our restaurants and our bars and our, you know, in our retail and all of that, you know, that brings in that group, and is it going to turn them away as well? And it's, you know, it is something that we do take, you know, we hear all the time, we want less of it, not more of it. That is definitely what we are hearing over and over again, that we want less of it. You know, we already battle like a lot of complaints of, you know, smelling it, or, you know, just, you know, the traffic outside of certain areas, but especially just the, you know, like the odor, and that's awful close to Madison Township, where we get a lot of complaints, you know, of odor and things like that. And I already feel like we look like Weed City in some ways, because I will sit in parking lots sometimes just to see how many out-of-state plates come roaring into a lot of our places, and it's amazing. We are a destination already, and that's frightening to me. I mean, it's great if they're partaking of something else in our town, like our food or, you know, something else like that, but I don't see that. I see them coming in, getting it, leaving. And if you just sit in the parking lot, you can watch that happen over and over again. And I don't want to be that destination. I mean, I think my heart just really sunk when I saw this. I was very excited, thinking the mall maybe it has potential, like we're gonna go somewhere with this. And then when I saw just the minute the name came over, I'm like, oh, no. So that's just how I feel.
Let me tell you how I feel. I don't have anybody telling me that we're Weed City, that we have too many. I haven't heard it at all. I didn't like the presentation he made. I'm not saying that I'm all on board, but I'm all about listening to somebody with progressive ideas. And when we first started talking about embracing marijuana businesses, one of the things that we talked about was bringing people into the city, bringing people in. You buy your product, hopefully you buy some lunch, hopefully you buy some gas. That was all part of the conversation. And I know for a fact that they're doing that. People aren't driving in from other areas, stopping in any one of our marijuana shops and bolting out of town. I don't believe that's happening. But I do like the idea that somebody has looked at us with a very progressive idea. They don't even really have a solid model yet. So basically, they've just brought some ideas together. And so I think that we have to be willing to listen when somebody comes to us with a new idea, and not just freak out as soon as we hear a new idea, because again, we're making decisions that will hopefully affect the city down the road. And I don't think that there's a lot of really young people who are freaked out about the idea of being called a marijuana city. I mean, we could have very easily have been the car capital of the world if it hadn't been for a couple of fires over on the east side. And so to be known as something that is legal, it's not like we are the bootleg capital of Michigan or any place else. We're doing something that's completely legal. We're the ones who got it started here. And so far, I haven't seen any of the provisioning centers that aren't doing well, that don't look good, that haven't fixed up blighted properties. And how many jobs have they created? So, you know, I don't like to hear the rest of you bad mouthing that industry when I think they've done a lot of good for us. And maybe this doesn't really fit into our community perfectly, but we have to listen when people bring these kind of ideas to us. And when somebody's saying, we want to do something that's going to bring more business to your community, our ears need to perk up. So
the science behind this is fascinating too. So the green space that comes from this and utilizing hemp rather than cotton, et cetera, stuff like that, it's pretty, I would be interested in more of the science stuff. I don't want to turn something away either that quick. I'm really interested in hearing more. I also know that, you know, some of the industries, they do a lot for nonprofits in our community. So I don't know, I mean, they're just the real estate guys, whatever, but what does that look like for our community and the nonprofits in our community and things like that? Helping them build some, you know, getting rid of those silos that we've talked about and building stronger entities. I don't think we should just throw it away yet. I think we should have more conversation.
It was a lot to digest. I mean, it really did. I mean, I was watching it and again, and Lad's spot on when it comes to, this is a legal industry. I just, you know, I just need to digest what I just heard. And I'll play the tape back and listen to it again and then maybe twice, but I just, you know, you're convincing. I don't know. It's because again, you and I were here when it started, but I'm trying to wrap my head around just the different moving pieces what the gentleman presented. So,
well, and I'll go back to what I said. I'll listen to more of what people have to say. I just express my concerns, and if we can address those concerns, like particularly the young people, that just really bothers me. But I'll listen. But I'm not convinced tonight. But I need more information. And, you know, the agricultural side and the development side, I agree, there's a lot of opportunity to look at that as well.
And I get like marijuana pot with THC is one thing, but CBD oil and other, that's a whole other ballgame.
Right.
It was legal well before we legalized, you know, marijuana with THC. So, just there's a lot there. I'm interested in hearing more. I really am.
I'm fine with that.
And I definitely wasn't closed-minded off. I mean, even though I said my heart saying, I definitely listened. I was very intrigued by the greenhouse, the farm to table, the you know, the food truck coming in, the rotating, you know, all of that, the restaurant side of that, the spa side of it. I definitely was, you know, listening and very intrigued, and I would like to hear more as well.
I'm unwavering. Fair points, everybody, fair points, totally get it. He's talking about making Adrian a pot destination. Like, let's take our kids and go buy sneaks and I can get a rub down with CBD and then we can go have a marijuana infused tea. And then, no, it doesn't fit.
This was just version one. I mean, you know, it hasn't been talked through yet, Brad.
I get it. It's a huge parcel though. They're not gonna do something small on it. They're not putting up a little ice cream shop that's got stuff. It's huge. Isaac's made a huge investment in it. It's not gonna be little.
That's why we need to listen.
All right.
The potholes look better.
Great. Thank you, Isaac. I mean, I get it. Like, yeah. Next idea, please. I mean,
I know, Brett, I know.
Well, you feel like you got some feedback, Raphael?
You know, I just want to clarify to you guys that we don't need a license, by the way. We built a real estate for the license holders. So what we are doing, we are consolidating the operation in the region. You know, so that is the idea here. So we don't need to issue a license for account. We built the real estate because most of the profit of our operation is not the marijuana or the CBD trade. It's actually the other services that we provide. We built this way on purpose because we calculate how much people you use marijuana. And you know, the numbers has been steady between 22 to 27% of the population. We can't sustain a business just on that alone. So we look actually at all of the variables. That's why you have the designation of the pot business being 20% of our total business. But that's just because we lease the space to them, to the license holder. And then he puts his license there. So the city of Adrian doesn't need to issue a new license. We can use somebody there and anybody will be willing to be there, you know, but the operation and how to run the operation, the quality control is controlled by the house. So that's, we're a real estate developer. So look at it exactly like a mall. And this is a concession that we do for a pot license holder. I'm not able to.
Madam Mayor, the sound is unintelligible.
Yeah. Now it's better.
Back now?
Yeah, it's clear now.
Okay, sorry about that. I was just saying, we do have another item to get to on our pre-meeting agenda before 7 o'clock, so we need to move on to that, but do feel free to reach out to me if you'd like to come back and continue the discussion at a future meeting. I'm sure the commission would be open to that.
Yeah, you guys just let us know if this is something you guys want to explore further, and then we can discuss with the city and try to come up with a concept that will work both ways. Okay? Thank you so much for the opportunity, ladies and gentlemen. Okay?
Hey, Madam Mayor, the final scheduled item for the pre-meeting is discussion about blight strategies. I know you and Commissioner Helt had an opportunity to visit Wyandotte a couple of weeks ago and wanted to have some discussion about what you learned there.
Yes, so Commissioner Helt and myself were part of a group that went up and toured Wyandotte and met with a developer there and met with the former city administrator there and met with a lot of people there. We drove around a lot and looked at a lot and how they have the blight strategies they've implemented and kind of seeing them more in action. They had already talked with Commissioner Held and Commissioner Strayer and myself and in the past, but to go actually see it firsthand. And you know, we got a lot of great stuff that we'd like to really, you know, think about and like start discussing, and let's look at and see what we can implement and how, you know, is this something that we're interested in implementing, and is this something that we can make happen? And you know, a lot of it, just I'm going to preface this, I'm going to let Commissioner Held, you know, kind of present it. I know he sent you the document to look at ahead, you know, from our notes, but it's literally a lot of what they told us is, to begin with, it was seen as a negative by certain people. And as time went on, whether it be realtors, whether it be the residents, whether it be the business owners, whatever it might be, that then they all saw it as a positive. And to see the turnaround up there was amazing. The thinking outside of the box with properties, and we saw what those properties looked like before. We saw some in the middle of construction right now, actually. We actually walked into a hard hat area and looked at, but just to see what can happen when with these blight initiatives, and the turnaround is incredible. And we just got a lot of really great ideas and things that we would like to discuss with you. So, Mr. Held.
I'll be quick because we're running low on time, but the mayor, myself, and Commissioner Strayer are, you know, with this blight committee, we started last October with some community members. Greg was a part of those meetings also. Pretty much the basis of this is that, you know, we hired a new code enforcement officer, Jake, was doing a great job, getting a lot of traction. We're bringing out a blight coordinator to handle some of the paper pushing and the emails response back to whether it be landlords or homeowners that have questions about certain laws and certain just how our ordinance is structured. I met with Greg about 2 weeks ago, just to kind of get his feedback. Again, we had a good discussion about it, and then we kind of discussed the items I sent you, and this is just pretty much a paraphrase of meeting with Mark and Wyandotte, because I wanted to know what pushback he got, and because in my opinion that hiring more bodies is the only thing we're doing different than what Adrian's done in the past. So I wanted to make sure that are we being aggressive enough to get the results that we need. And so we met with Wyandotte for about 3 hours, 3.5 hours or so. Good discussion, learned a lot. We don't know anything about Wyandotte. Wyandotte was a very blighted community back in the 80s, as the flyer shows. They made change because they wanted to clean up their city. And in the document that I sent you, the four components was pretty much the starting point to get to where they were at now. Wyandotte now one of the better cities to live in downriver, with a lot of development. You know, people are moving back into the community. I mean, the mayor and I seen multiple buildings downtown getting renovated, and just a good place to live and do business. So now, yeah.
One thing they did tell us too, we're in a better place than they were. because they said they had no need for housing downtown. Nobody wanted to be downtown. And we actually have the opposite. We have waiting lists. We have people calling all the time. Do you know of any rentals downtown? We want to live downtown. Like, and they said that they literally looked us in the eyes and said, you are in the best place ever because you got people that want to live there. So especially when it comes to lighted properties, when it comes to like your downtown or even just rentals, and the fact that we have a housing need, they had almost the exact opposite at the time.
So when I met with Greg, the first one I shot at him was, which is the first item, is the upon sale inspection. And one would ask, why would we need an upon sale inspection when, as a buyer, you would already have your investment inspected anyways, personally? Well, myself being now a real estate on a small scale investor, I bought a house last April, had my own inspection. Obviously, the house had issues. I think I've actually said this in a meeting. Bought the home, understanding that it's got some problems. So the house was a rental for 10 years because I had a current tenant there who she's still there, was never inspected by the city. So Wyandotte in 1987, 88, they passed an ordinance that every property in their city is inspected by the city to make sure it's up to code. So you're not having surprises like, hey, you have this issue, because your personal inspector doesn't look for everything the city inspector would look for. And so now that goes on to commercial buildings, owner occupied, you name it. That ensures that every home in the city or every building in the city is up to compliance, at least up to code. That is the most of the document I see. That was the main cog that the turnaround the city of Wyandotte, because they weren't having a lot of turnover, and then they got some pushback from the real estate community. But over time, the real estate community understood that now it's like it increased property values, and so they were actually very thankful for that. The inspection would be cost neutral because it would be cost, the city would have to find out how much it costs to inspect, and bill the buyer or the seller or both. Now, if upon sale inspection was to go forward and say I knew that there were some problems, and I could sign an affidavit saying that, Commissioner Watson's selling me this property. Hey, I know these problems. City inspected it. I know, so the affidavit signed, filed with the city, so I have 6 months to fix it. So it doesn't slow down the closing process. So that the upon sale inspection was the main call, along with the magistrate, to actually get all our properties up to compliance, whether it be chip and paint, sinking porches, just everything that Jake or Glenn would go into a property to look for. We would have it on record of that property's up to compliance, so you have X amount of time to do it. So that's that one. Rental inspection, Wyandotte does every 5 years. They actually went from 3 years. I'm sorry. Yep. Go ahead.
Does anyone know, does Adrian Township do that currently?
I don't know. I did look at, I did research a lot of cities.
I just have, no? Hmm.
Most downriver cities do it because they follow Wyandotte's lead on it, and it's more so for cities that have a lot of blight issues. Like they're the ones that are adopting that.
Maybe if they see it, they tell them.
Right.
My neighbor just recently moved to Adrian Township, and upon doing that, there were a number of things that they didn't realize they would have to fix before they could move in. So I was just wondering if any of our area townships.
I don't know if any locally do, but I remember Commissioner Cherry, we talked about this years ago when it got kind of nixed based on commission support.
Yep.
A little contentious. Again, it's one of those things where you can say it's going to slow the process down, but but again, we have a job to do, and that's to get our city up to compliance and code.
So on this upon sale inspection, all parcels, all properties, period.
Yep.
Correct.
Mm-hmm.
What is the city's turnaround time or guarantee? Like, hey, is it a certain number of days from accepting offer? How does Wyandotte manage that component of it? Because we have to have some kind of standard to not delay. It's going to be 6 weeks to get a city inspection.
Right. And again, that's one of those things we have to iron out. And I did not pull the ordinance, but I do have our notes. And this is pretty much notes that were taken from our meeting.
Yeah.
But there's gotta be something that we can't be slowing down sales of property.
And that's something
No.
we can ask too, like what they do, you
Right.
know, and what they have theirs, they've ironed out. That's why it's kind of nice to pick their brains, because they've ironed out where all the problems were, and now they fixed them as they've gone along, and so they figured out those little hiccups.
Right.
If somebody's gonna come in and wanna have a 30-day escrow, and they're gonna be looking at the city to produce the inspectors out there to get it taken care of.
Right.
But they also said people want to invest now and buy property there because they know that's going to occur. So they know they're not gonna walk in and be like, oh, surprise, we didn't know we had to do X, Y, Z. Like, we at least knew this. So it's that assurance that they know what they're walking into is also it's very enticing for investors as well.
We have a lot of properties that are inhabitable right now. You know, that we don't, at this table, we don't understand. I mean, I'm sure some of us do know what the living conditions are in there, and we can get pushback all we want from the real estate community, but my position is that we have a responsibility to make sure people have a quality place to live with a roof over their head. And I've seen houses that my dad used to live in with holes in the bathroom. And again, this is, you know, and again, we brought Jake on, but it's a two-man show right now, getting out on the streets and fighting this fight. So eventually, like the rental inspection, I'm not even meaning to move quickly, but they initially started at 3 years and they moved all the way back to 10 years. And they felt like that was too long on the rental inspection. So they dialed it back and figured out that 5 years was their sweet spot when it comes to rental inspection. So we're currently at 3. Eventually maybe we can get to 5, but we have a lot of work. I remember we talked about the blight coordinator position and seeing if I think Commissioner Roberts asked this question, like, what if we don't need this individual? And I hope that's a good problem to have in the future. We got a long way to go, but I think we need to get our, not necessarily head out of the sand. We have a lot of property owners that don't give 2 licks about who lives there. As long as that check hits on the first of the month, that's all they care about. And most of those individuals don't even live in the city. Both my rental properties, I live a mile and a mile and a half away from both of them. And I watch them, you know, so the inspection thing, we're already on top of that. We've hired bodies, but the pond sale inspection, that's the main cog into making sure that all of our buildings are up to code and into compliance. So
That sounds like more staff.
could be. Yep.
Yeah.
Yep, and it could be. It's one of those things about Commissioner Casper said it a while back. She goes, there really should be a price tag when it comes to making our city safe and a good place to live. So that's where I'm at with that.
Good memory.
Yeah.
Did you say that?
Remember saying that?
Yeah.
I remember.
I
that.
remember.
But yep, right. And so the next one is blight and code enforcement when it comes to now, and Greg and I talked about this, and he made some good points, and maybe you can share those points about the civil infraction, but right now we just do civil infractions, correct?
When we issue a notice of violation, you know, obviously we hope that will resolve the problem. That's just a letter.
Right.
And if it doesn't, then, you know, we don't give a second notice like they do apparently. In Wyandotte, we go directly to a civil infraction at that point. Then we turn it over to the city attorney. It's his process from that point forward. We like the civil infraction process because it allows the district court to give us injunctive relief. We always say we don't want fines, we don't want penalties, we want compliance. The only way you achieve compliance is to have the court order compliance. So that's what we're seeking as an end point. I think we've been having good success getting those orders. What we haven't tested yet, and maybe John can speak to this a little bit if you want, is that point where, so the typical order, the standard order that we get out of the court is defendants to comply within 30 days. Defendant doesn't comply, the city may, but not must, may take action to correct the violation themselves. Well, we're faced with a choice at that point. Do we want to spend that much money, invest that much money in this property? In other words, do we expect to ever get that back? You know, if it's a demolition, for example, lot's not going to be worth what it costs to demolish the building, so we will not get it back. So we don't have an unlimited pot of resources to throw at things like that. What we want to test, and what John's gearing up to test, is bringing that defendant back into court, because at that point where they fail to comply with the court's order, they're in contempt of court, and bring him back on a show cause hearing to have them answer for why they haven't corrected the problem in response to the court ordering them to do so. John, is there anything you want to add on that point?
Good evening, Madam Mayor, Commissioners, Administrator Elliott. Very briefly, we've been working hard on the blight issue. Commissioner Halt is right. There's a long way to go. And there are two main components. The city of Adrian is utilizing one in terms of the rentals with regard to certificates of compliance. Those are going to continue to work well. I would strongly suggest an amendment of the ordinance to require certificates of occupancy for anyone who transfers ownership or sale of real property within the city of Adrian, that they are required to obtain a certificate of occupancy for residential real property. It's quite easy to do. 80% of the communities in Michigan utilize that type of feature. I would suggest you may need one additional person, or there are many communities in southeastern Michigan now that are using code enforcement officers who are on a part-time basis. They will do inspections for CNOs 2 or 3 days a week. For instance, the city of Adrian, you don't even have to hire them on a full-time basis. That's the number one way to bust blight, quite frankly. The second way, briefly, you have 2 district court judges here I found out who are really in tune. Judge Poor and Judge Shadler are great to work with regards to these ordinances. I did 4 or 5 today. They are ready to haul us into court whenever we want. We've been much more aggressive in recent months. We are formulating at the administrator's request a show cause order. When people don't comply, we are going to begin to go back with the assistance of Mr. Preston and Mr. Rendell for a show cause order as to why they should not be held in contempt. And from any indication I'm getting from Judges Poor and Scheidler, they are ready, willing, and able to, upon appropriate evidence presentation, assist the city of Adrian. They have been handing out some fines recently. We've been negotiating with people only to the extent they've got to get the work done. And I'm sending out Preston and Rendell before every court appearance. They're taking pictures. We're having good success in that regard. We need to continue the momentum. The city has to realize it's going to take some investment on their part. Don't pay me to do it. Let's get a quick show cause order, and the city can begin to take the steps to remedy the defects on their own if they won't. Bring in contractors, so to speak, on a budget basis with strict budgets. But it is going to require some type of investment. But with the real estate market the way it is today, especially in cities like Adrian, I don't think that's going to be a problem. I don't think that's going to be a problem whatsoever. We received notice just today that Mr. Kosalka has entered an appearance in the Adrian Inn matter. We intend to prosecute that very vigorously, and the other 2 are waiting to be served with process, or one other has been served. We'll continue on that path. There's a lot to do, but we're working hard on it right now. But C of O, certificates of occupancy, are critical.
So a CO, when, is that the same thing as a bond sale inspection?
Yeah,
So
what
they
he's
have to
saying
get-
is we reissue
Yes.
the CO every time it goes vacant or changes hands.
Is the misdemeanor when it comes to the model that they use in Wyandotte, is that a way to get people to comply? Will there be, and not drag John into court every other time, you know? Is it having that component as a third strike from non-compliance? Because if you get served civil infraction once, okay. Second time, okay. Third time, I don't care what's going on now. You need to comply. So is that, no, go ahead, John.
If you're going to burden your police department, so to speak, with arresting individuals, you will still have to have an attorney, whether you increase the amount of the retention that you give to the Lenawee prosecutor to prosecute the misdemeanors and things of that nature. That's one idea of doing it. But I don't think the misdemeanor necessarily is going to do it. We need to haul the people back into court and show cause orders, keep it very cheap. And they can be arrested under a failure to abide by show cause or held in contempt of court as well. I think misdemeanor is going to require a much, much bigger investment on the part of the city of Adrian right now. But I tell you, they're writing a lot of tickets. They are writing a ton of tickets and they're getting people's attention.
And with a misdemeanor, all you're effectively gonna get is another fine. And the jail is not gonna put anybody in jail on a misdemeanor charge. They won't put them in jail on certain felony charges. So that's just not gonna happen. And it, you know, much more, I mean, our idea is much more persuasive to bring them back in front of the judge that ordered them to do a certain thing that they have failed to do on the show cause hearing and see what the judge has to say about that.
So are you saying, Greg, that we have a stricter, minus the misdemeanor, but we might even with that, with the contempt of court, we have a stricter timeline? Do we have a stricter thing than even Wyandotte was doing? Because, you know, they give a violation letter, they give them 30 days, they give another one if nothing happens, they give them 30 days, then it's a civil infraction, now they have 60 days, then they get a second civil infraction, now they have 45 days, and that's when it went to the misdemeanor. So they did tell us, you know, it's a 6 to 9 month process when the people aren't complying. They did say it doesn't really shorten it, and they did admit that to us when we were meeting with them. Are you saying the way ours is even more aggressive possibly than that then? Because we only get one. Will you explain it again, exactly what process is?
Yeah, our normal process is you get a notice of violation, which is a letter with the time to comply. If you don't comply, you get civil infraction right down there. We don't issue another civil infraction. We end that prosecution ends with an order. And what we want to do is, if we aren't getting compliance on that order, there's no reason to issue another ticket. We need to enforce that order. So it's much compressed compared to the process that's outlined here. The one exception to that is that we've been not aggressive at this point with homeowners who indicate that they have a lack of means to comply. We're kind of waiting to get our revolving loan fund implemented before we try to take this action.
If I may
And
give one
they-
quick, I'm sorry.
They indicated that as well at Wyandotte. They don't go after the fixed income for, I mean, that they can see that, and they have ways about that, even giving low, you know, 0 interest loans, and it's like a lien on your house. Like they have many other ways to help those people. This was just going after the people that can afford to do it. It's the landlords,
How do we
the
judge who
business
qualifies
owners.
for that?
Well, for our purposes right now, if you're renting property, you're in that business, we expect you to be able to comply. We kind of have zero tolerance of it.
And think like homeowners, is there a threshold that we would judge that on or by?
I can, only from watching this, I happen to be sitting in court watching some cases with John 2 weeks ago. And I watched him and Judge Ford work with the defendant. Is that what they're called? No, I don't know. The person that was called in, and they had a conversation. They had a conversation like, well, I can't do it till then because this is when I'm going to get paid. And, you know, they would talk to their spouse or their wife or I mean, their mom or whoever was in court with them. So it was a conversation between the powers that be, and when can you get it done? When can you pay for this? So I was very impressed. How,
And if they can't though,
that
I
we
just
were.
want to, I mean, maybe somebody just put their 3 kids in college all the same time. I don't, I'm just saying, is there, I don't want to get stuck in a judgment call that's.
Well, when we get to that point of having our fund, you know, we have to have eligibility criteria for it. Those haven't been developed yet, but we got set back and doing that a couple weeks ago. But when we have that, that will be the test, right? All right, are you in this position where you can qualify for assistance, or are you not in that position? If you're not in that position, then the other side of that coin is that it's reasonable to expect that you would be able to comply.
I do know that people are starting to hear how aggressive we are taking measures. That's why, when I bought my one property at, city issued them a civil infraction, and then they say, I don't want to sell this, get off money, because they knew they had problems. And so city contacted them, schedule an inspection. They go, oh, I sold it. Don't like I bought it. Go send him an email, and so that's why that upon sale inspection is so important, is because once we go forward with some of these things, or maybe we don't, but the word's gonna get out, and we got some bad landlords in this town. We do. And those are what I'm after. The people that are people that are having, it's the rental business, the rental property ownership is a business. And just some of the properties that people live in is as a landlord, they should be very embarrassed. And so those are the ones that's the main one I'm looking to try to accomplish, is number one. Again, if you think that, if we're getting more traction based on our current process, within the magistrate, it's not even needed, but we talked to the magistrate and the judge, and they said we have a 99% compliance rate once they get to the magistrate. So that's just the information they gave us, and
it sounded like the majority of theirs were also landlords. Like,
Right.
this was not a lot of homeowners that were living in the houses themselves. This is, and they even discussed, when it comes to that, like, once a house starts fixing up on a block, then, we've talked about that before, the snowball effect, everybody starts doing it, and they've seen that happen there. Just by having the landlords fix up those properties, it's kind of enticed the homeowners. Now we want to fix up ours, but it was definitely a landlord compliance issue they were having leading in. They had, when it came to the homeowners, the things that they were talking about were like putting the trash out when they weren't supposed to, or really high weeds, or things like that. That was more your homeowner based tickets that they were, and those were not going, those were like those lesser, just like violation tickets and asking for compliance on that. They really weren't, it was definitely more on the landlord and even the business owner side of that. I did ask them when we were there, and they said, no, they didn't have it. Because we've talked about before, I actually asked if they had, because I noticed no bad storefronts. We walked the whole downtown, and I asked, do you have an ordinance on, on the windows, on the storefronts, and like how they look, even if they're not occupied? And they said, no, we don't. There were some that were not occupied. It's not all 100% occupied down there, and they didn't look bad, but I was surprised by that answer because of that, because that's exactly why I asked. And, I know we've talked about that as well. And I know Greg and I have had a lot of conversations about that, and he has sent some things out. I just feel that also negatively reflects on us. And I feel like there needs to be something when it comes to those storefronts. And even if you're in construction or you're just sitting on that building, whatever, you need to have a nice looking window, and great, your building facade is in good shape, but when your window doesn't look so good, that's a deterrent. And but they didn't. They said they hadn't had that problem, and there were definitely buildings that were empty when we were there. So
Do they have kitchens?
did they? No, stop. No.
And like some of the little things
Stop.
like
No,
like
you're
a lids on trash cans. Now in the city currently, you can opt to buy a tote, which I remember we got into a big old debate when we negotiated the last trash contract, because I want everybody to have a tote, and I want a little more money. But if you put bags in the street, animals get into it, rodents, trash, and they have a law in Wyandotte, you have to have a tote with a lid, not just a tote. You gotta have a lid on it. And so I went out, my house on Mackenzie Street I own, I got 2 totes because it's a duplex. And I don't want bags, but I want, that's those are the little things you can do to try to, because people are, animals, people messing, a lid on a tote.
That's it. I have one comment, and one question. Because I have been involved in some of these discussions before, I would like to say to other people around the table that this was a plan that Wyandotte has used and been successful with. But when you look down through this plan, I know from some other discussions with Greg and the likes, a lot of these things we already have in place. So it's not like we have to completely reinvent the wheel here. So when you look at this, it's not like there's a ton of work here. I mean, when they talk about the tracking through the BSA system and things. We have all those things in place. So I just want to make that point, and I just know that from being involved in meetings. My question is, and you guys would know better, and we have Mr. Gahuli on the Zoom, because our attorney says things are going well and he's happy with our judges and things. How are we going to benefit from a magistrate? I don't understand that.
Yeah, I defer to John, but I think in my experience in busier courts, sometimes the magistrate helps with the workload, but I gather there's not really a problem getting in front of judges Hoare and Shadler. Is that the case, John?
That is the case. That's a very good distinction. These judges, unlike some others who I won't mention names, are ready, willing, and able to hear our cases, quite frankly, and just out of perspective. Today, I was in court on 4 violations that were issued August 2, or the first week of August, quite frankly, and we're already in court. We've already had negotiations with 2 people who have cleaned up 90% of the stuff based on a drive-by this morning. I really don't think a magistrate and that expense is needed instead of paying somebody whatever magistrates go for these days, and like take that $40,000, $50,000, $60,000, so to speak. Let's invest it in fixing up things when residents don't, putting the lien on the property, which is easy to do, by the way. And if storefronts downtown, we've got the mechanism in place in terms of nuisance ordinances, and like if paint is peeling or windows are broken in storefronts, we can go after them right away as well. I don't think you need a magistrate right now when we have 2 very competent judges who will give us as much time as we need, as I've seen for these cases. And 2 guys, by the way, Preston and Rendell, who make great appearances in court. We just got to get a little bit more aggressive, let these guys do their job, give people a little opportunity, have these conversations, but tell them we're strict. We'll see you in court again, as I do, and we're coming after you if you don't remedy these things. It's not fair to the neighbors. It's not fair to anybody. Get it cleaned up. The city's been very cooperative as well, I should say.
Wayne County, the Illinois County, when it comes to workload, I think that's a little bit unbalanced, clearly. So that's the mechanism they use, because again, I'm sure Wayne County has a lot of problems that they're dealing with. If John says that he's getting some traction and Greg says we're getting traction, I mean, but I just want to see us be more aggressive when it comes to the upon sale. Again, it's going to be a hot button item, you know, if we were to go forward with it, but the little stuff like the trash, you know, lid on toes, we can talk about that when we go to the contract next, but
Is there any upon sale inspection, and I'm just like, is there something that we can, when people get their home inspected, that they get that, like, T's crossed, I's dotted? Or does it have to be our inspection?
now that I don't think Mark said anything about that.
He didn't.
That's a good point. I mean, why don't, if you're getting inspected by your own personal inspector, make sure they know the
That's
city
$500.
code.
I know that's $200 for that inspection. I just.
Well, but he did say, so that did sort of come up, because he said there's things though that you may not know, like, or maybe it's a water line issue and the utilities has gone out and already talked to that homeowner, and now they're trying to sell the house really fast and be sneaky about it. Well, the home inspector's not gonna know that.
That's against the law.
Well, I know, but they're saying that was happening.
I mean, that's a pretty big lawsuit for
Yeah.
the previous homeowner if they don't disclose that. However, that doesn't help you if you're buying one.
Right.
If you never find out.
So from what I hear, Mayor, you can chime in too, like, I think we're on the right track. I mean, we've hired more bodies, we're getting compliance, John's being aggressive, but I would like to see that first one adopted.
Let's go.
Yeah,
I
me
would.
too.
And again, Greg can keep briefing us as we go forward on our progress. But the first one, that's we have some landlords that
And-
open up.
And the one key that the judge even said, it's documentation. Like the judge harped on us like crazy when she sat in there about documentation and just making sure that, you know, and I know that's happening, but just to keep that up, and especially that came up because of people that are repeat offenders as well. And so to have that documentation to go at them and be like, hey, the judge now looks at it and says, you already just did this a year ago and you're back to this again, you know, whatever it might be for that documentation.
But if he's in court from an office second ticket already. Good with that.
So. Right.
Okay, that's all I had this evening, Mayor.
All right, at this time, it is now time for public comment. If anyone has any public comment, please state your name and address.
Hello.
Ken Tokar.
2 South Winter Street. You've heard from me numerous. All right, so I'll just keep this brief. I personally, when I hear the mall, my first thought is somewhere for people with low income housing. Now, that's my first thought, though. I'm definitely open to this business coming in. Of course, it's on its first draft. But I hope that you guys do have a continued conversation with them and maybe rework it a little bit for something more like what we are used to. I know I'm not real comfortable with a huge tower in the middle of town, especially considering the height of numerous of the other buildings. But this is in the early stages, so I think you guys should have a conversation with them. Especially since who's doing anything with the mall to begin with? And it's been pitiful for quite a while. Along with that, as mentioned, there's numerous other businesses and business opportunities in there, including ones that we're already trying to do some of them now, such as make our distribution a little bit more robust, make sure we have more local food. That's all something they're talking about. And of course, the money to our city will be very helpful in making our historical things more prominent. Maybe even making a new, bigger museum where we can display the actual culture we have here, as well as to show off why we're such a great city and why people should come visit us. Besides that, why they should come at another time as well. We also know we have a lot of food places here, so there's plenty of places to look around at. And of course, more will be coming in. And some of ours around here would get more promotion from that as well. So I hope you guys will continue your conversation with them. I would like to see something that is going to benefit all of our residents. I do have a little bit concerned about the type of housing they want, but if that's for their employees and people who are employed in adjacent sectors, that's going to free up housing for those who have lower income and are going to be a little further away from that. As well as, again, all that money coming in will allow you to work on some of these buy properties. Consider putting in some housing for those in need. Consider putting a grocery store in places that don't have them. And actually look at some public transportation, depending on how much money that brings in. So that's all I have for now. I'll bug you more in the oral meeting.
Ken Tokars, 110 South Locust. Can you hear me?
Yes.
I would
Yes,
ask
we
you to
can.
close your eyes. I would ask you to close your eyes for a second and envision yourself picking up a brand new car, only to find that the door skins, fenders, quarter panels, and hood were secured to the vehicle frame with exposed fasteners. Open your eyes and close them again as you take a closer look at the new siding on your house and discover that the contractor installed the siding with exposed fasteners. Open your eyes and close them again as you walk into your brand new kitchen, only to find the contractor installed your new countertops with exposed fasteners. Now, this may seem a little extreme, but I'm trying to make a point about the recently installed sign north of town with exposed fasteners. Name one business in town with exposed fasteners, and the only thing that comes to mind is Rice and Barley, but they took the time to specify caps on their exposed fasteners. Exposed fasteners have their place on the skin of an airplane and can be seen when you exit the skywalk and enter the plane. You should not see exposed fasteners on the entrance sign to a city that you are trying to promote unless you really do not care. Concealed fasteners are not new technology and have been used for years in the automotive industry, Georgia Pacific Siding, sign companies, and employed kitchen remodelers. Why would the Adrian City Commission spend our tax dollars on an entrance sign with exposed fasteners? While there may be different styles of metal panels out there, there are virtually only two types to choose from: exposed fasteners or concealed fastener systems. What is the difference between exposed versus concealed fasteners? Fasteners refer to the hardware used to secure metal panels to the building or structure beneath them. This includes a wide variety of different mechanical securement devices and assemblies. Everything from nails and screws to clips and bolts are considered to be part of the fastener family. Exposed fasteners are able to be seen on top of panels after installation is completed. This hardware will be directly secured through the face of the material panel to the structure below. The panels will overlap one another. The fastener will be driven through both panels, and the head of the fastener will be visible on the outside of the building. Concealed fasteners are unable to be seen after the installation is complete. The fasteners are secured beneath the metal panel, making for a smooth, uninterrupted surface. No metal panels are penetrated by hardware for this system, as the panels are laid over and attached with a clip system, and then mechanically or hand locked into place. The pros and cons of exposed fastener systems. Advantages: easier installation for a do-it-yourselfer. Disadvantages:
I'm sorry, your
exposed
time is
fasteners.
up. Thank you. Thank you.
Thank
Your
you.
time is up. Thank you. Hearing no more public comment, may I get a motion to adjourn?
So move.
Support.
All in favor, say aye.
Aye.
Meeting is adjourned and the regular meeting will begin at 7:10. I call to order the Adrian City Commission meeting for September 7th, 2021. If everyone would please rise for a moment of silence and the Pledge of Allegiance. I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all. Roll call, please. And when speaking, I just want to remind everyone to really get close to the microphone and speak loudly, because I've heard that it's very difficult sometimes to hear in the room as opposed to on Zoom unless we're pretty close to the microphones. Roll call, please.
Mayor Heath,
Present.
Commissioner Hou,
Present.
Commissioner Roberts,
Present.
Commissioner Watson,
Present.
Commissioner Strayer,
Present.
Commissioner Castleberry,
Present.
Commissioner Gauss,
Present.
all commission members present.
Before I move on to consent agenda, there were some questions and it was new at the last meeting. And so there was some discussion and I decided along with the city administrator that maybe we better go over the rules of procedure just so that everyone, including the public, is aware of those rules of procedure when it comes to the consent agenda, since it is such a new procedure. So in our rules of procedure, section 4.07 under consent agenda, items may be removed from the consent agenda on the request of any one member. That would be any one member of the city commission. Items not removed may be adopted by general consent without debate. When it comes to public participation and comments under rules and procedures, section 5.01, an opportunity for public comment will be provided on every agenda item other than items on the consent agenda and is limited to 3 minutes per citizen. So just to clarify, because there were some questions on public comment, if you do have concerns with something in the general public, if you have concerns with something on that consent agenda, I would urge you to reach out to a commissioner or myself and express those concerns, because it is only this body up here that is allowed to remove that from the consent agenda and put that on the regular agenda. So that would be your procedure moving forward. If it is something on the consent agenda that you have concerns about, to please reach out to one of us, because we are the ones that are allowed to remove that. from the consent agenda and have that debate at that point. So.
Mayor, I have a question.
Go ahead.
So say we have some people who are being appointed to positions or something, a number of people, so they're all on the consent agenda. But what if somebody from the public wants to just address and make a comment about a person who's being appointed? You know, maybe say something about that person or whatever. They're not asking to take something off. They just want to make a comment. How are we going to handle that?
And I will ask our city administrator to weigh in on this because, or even our city attorney, but my understanding from looking at this is the consent agenda shall include the following items: approval of minutes, approval of payment of bills, setting dates for public hearings, approval of annual recurring expenditures and or contract to the lowest bidder meeting specifications and approved by commission in the annual budget, and additional routine items. I do not believe that appointments are additional routine items. I could be wrong, so you can correct me if I am wrong, but I do think that will still fall under the regular agenda.
Yeah.
I thought we did that. Maybe I'm wrong.
No, per your rules of procedure, unless it was contemplated to be an additional routine item, and I know, I don't think if I were preparing the agenda, I would consider an appointment to be a routine item necessarily. I mean, I guess it depends what level of appointment we're talking about, but the simple answer is that probably wouldn't be on the consent agenda. If just in general, you're concerned about the idea of there being no opportunity to comment on the consent agenda, I think the mayor's approach that she suggested, folks look at the agenda ahead of time, they see something on there they're concerned about, they should reach out to a member of the city commission and ask them to have it removed.
Because once it's removed from that consent agenda, then it goes on the regular agenda that evening. And so that will still follow all the same protocols with public comment, commissioner comment, et cetera. All right, so I'm going to move on. May I get a motion to approve the consent agenda?
So moved.
Support.
I have a motion from Commissioner Halt with a second from Commissioner Watson. Roll call, please.
Commissioner Halt,
Yes.
Commissioner Roberts,
Yes.
Commissioner Watson.
Yes.
Commissioner Strayer,
Yes.
Commissioner Castleberry,
Yes.
Commissioner Gauss,
Yes.
Mayor Heath.
Yes.
Consent agenda items approved by unanimous vote.
Under our regular agenda for ordinances, we have ordinance number 21-009. It's the second reading and consideration of an ordinance to amend the City of Adrian zoning and development regulations, Article 15, B3 Central Business District, with regard to outdoor cafe seating areas and to remove duplicate language in the relevant sections. May I get a motion to adopt the ordinance?
Move to adopt the ordinance.
Support.
Are there any public comments? Are there any commissioner comments? I have a motion from Commissioner Watson with a second from Commissioner Strayer. Roll call, please.
Commissioner Roberts,
Yes.
Commissioner Watson,
Yes.
Commissioner Strayer,
Yes.
Commissioner Castleberry. Yes. Commissioner Gauss,
Yes.
Mayor Heath,
Yes.
Commissioner Halt.
Yes.
Ordinance adopted by unanimous vote.
Under resolutions, we have resolution R21-153 from Parks and Engineering Services. It is a resolution to award a bid for the equipment and construction of a splash pad at Parish Park. May I get a motion to adopt the resolution?
Move to adopt the resolution, Gauss.
Support.
Are there any public comments?
Hello again. I'm Joaquin Ramos, 422 South Winter Street, homeowner and lifelong resident of Adrian. Also, in relation to this, I am the chair of A3, and we're set up pretty close to pretty much exactly around Parish Park and a couple other areas in that section of town. Now, I am definitely in favor of having a splash pad over there. I do hope that you guys are going to reach out to the residents of the area, especially A3, which is part of the voice of the residents, and make sure that you know what kind of splash pad you're doing. Make sure it's something that the residents are going to actually enjoy. And
make sure the residents feel that they are indeed being heard and their desires are being heard. So I hope you'll come and talk to us. I know this is still in the early parts, but we would like some more information as well, of course. And we're excited to have a splash pad, especially if it's something anywhere near what we are asking for. So I look forward to that, and I'll be back to bug you guys in normal public comment. Thank you.
Not hearing any more public comment. Are there any commissioner comments? I have a motion from Commissioner Gauss with the second from Commissioner Halt. Roll call, please.
Commissioner Watson,
Yes.
Commissioner Strayer,
Yes.
Commissioner Castleberry, yes, Commissioner Gauss,
Yes.
Mayor Heath,
Yes.
Mr. Hope,
Yes.
Commissioner Roberts.
Yes.
Resolution adopted by unanimous vote.
It is now time for a public comment. Just to reiterate, there is a 3-minute time limit, and for the record, please state your name and address. And we will begin public comment in person first. And once there is no more public comment in person, I will open it up to the Zoom public.
Hello again. I said I would be back. I am still Joaquin Ramos. I still live at 422 South Winter Street, and I'm still a homeowner. None of that has changed. So, first of all, this time I didn't bring you flyers, but you were all emailed them. I would like to welcome you as the chair of A3 to our second Fridays, this Friday, this time at Dunlap Park again. Probably the next one we won't be at Dunlap Park, but we'll let you know at that time. So we invite you there. We hope to see you all there, even if you're just stopping by. And then I would like to talk about the consent agenda a little bit. So from my understanding, the agenda didn't come out until like 12 hours ago. And how is someone who is working, how is someone who's busy able to contact you within that short amount of time about the consent agenda? Especially since it's not like that whole time you guys would have been available. Like, what if someone called at 5? Well, that wouldn't have worked. So I have some concerns about how do you contact about this consent agenda thing when you're allotted such a low time. I imagine Monday didn't just sneak up on us. I imagine we all knew that Monday was coming weeks ahead of time. It's a normal thing. But we weren't given the agenda on Friday. So how can anyone review it and have anything to say about it? So I hope you'll be a little bit better about getting out on time so that the public can actually do something. But what I would recommend is just add a public comment at the end of the consent agenda. It's 3 more minutes of your time. That's not much. I'm pretty sure when you all decide to run for office, you knew that sometimes meetings run long. And sometimes the residents have a lot to say, even if it's not necessarily something you personally think is relevant. So I think you should add a public comment time. It can't be that inconvenient to offer a few extra minutes, especially since you're cutting like 4 things out of the comment period. So just give them overall comment period. And again, make sure the agenda is out a bit sooner. So I hope you'll think about this. I hope you'll give a little bit easier representation. And again, as the chair of A3, the All About Adrian Resident Coalition, based in the east side of Adrian, we again welcome you to come to our second Fridays. We hope to see you there. And that's all. Thank you.
Seeing and hearing there is no more public comment in person, I will now ask, is there any public comment via Zoom? And for the record, please state your name and address, and you should be able to see your time on the screen as well.
Ken Tokar, 110 South Locust. Just wanted to touch upon some of the things that were mentioned today. I saw a lot of fire in the commissioner comments in regards to the marijuana proposal for the mall. It's just surprising though, because it seems like you guys rubber stamp every other proposal or facility that comes here, and now we got a big fire for that. I mean, nobody said anything when we put a marijuana facility next to the library, and now we don't want to have something at the mall. So I think your comments are a little bit conflicting. The other thing about blight is I see a lot of blight in the city. I know the city's spending a lot of money on the Kiwanis Trail and south on Division Street, south of where they're putting in the trail. There's two houses there right across the railroad tracks. And I guess I just don't understand how you can go after the hotel and the house on Broad Street when you kind of like ignore that property. There's a lot of issues at both of those properties. The other things that would be really easy for you guys to do with blight is maybe tell people that you can't store trash on your porches. Go around the city. How many porches have porch trash? I'm talking like bags. That's where they put it. They don't put it behind the house. Another thing with porches is there's a lot of houses in the city that have furniture like couches. You know, it's not outdoor furniture. And I'd really like to see you guys start enforcing that. As a homeowner, in comparison to a rental property owner, I think that what you guys are talking about doing is kind of scary. I can see that where that could be applicable to rental properties. I just have a lot of concern. You know, a lot of these people have purchased houses and they've had houses for years in the city, and the city hasn't enforced things. And, you know, let's just say someone who really hasn't done a good job of maintaining their property for 30 years because the city hasn't enforced. And then all of a sudden, you're going to start putting that person under a new set of rules. I definitely think you need to have a different set of rules for rental properties and a different set of rules for residential properties. The other thing you might want to look at too is why don't you look at businesses too and put them on the list? Let's inspect them before and afterwards. Thank you.
Not hearing any more public comment. Are there any commissioner comments? Not hearing any. May I get a motion to adjourn?
So moved.
Support.
I have a motion from Commissioner Watson with a second from Commissioner Halt. All in favor, say aye.
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 Meeting is adjourned. Thank you, everyone.